Okay. Here is the, another argument. And I know this, Sheikh, wallahi, I know it's getting late on you, but please just hang in there. I know, may Allah give you, here you are recovering from COVID, and may Allah give you Jannah, Sheikh Bilal, wallahi, for agreeing to do this. I know that you're going through it. But hang in there for a minute. Again, we're not scholars, we're learning, wallahi, every day. Wallahi, something that I love about teaching Dr. Bilal is I learn before I come to teach. And that's the beauty of it. But we have students, even though we're students ourselves, but we have sub-students. So they come and say, well, you guys, don't talk of Nawawi, for example, who somehow, whether implicitly or explicitly, whatever it is, he said it's okay to Mawlid, and he's Ash'ari, and yet you die for his Sahih Muslim. How come we cannot do this with a living person who's still teaching, and we don't know what is he going to come up with, that we have to speak out and say that's wrong? How come we're not going after Nawawi? How come we're not totally rejecting Nawawi and these noble scholars? We actually say rahimahumullah for their contribution to the da'wah, for the work of Islam, the preservation of the deen, even though they had these, defects here and there. Errors. How come we are picking on this one now? And please.
The line is that, as I had mentioned to you and we discussed it earlier, if we weigh the booklet which Imam al-Nawawi wrote on the Mawlid, in support of the Mawlid poem or whatever, and his commentary on Sahih Muslim, the two are just incomparable. One is just like a piece of dust you can blow away and it's gone, and the other one is a pot of gold. So who is without error? The Prophet ﷺ told us, "Kullu bani Adam khata." Every descendant of Adam is making errors all the time. So if we are to reject people, for any error that they made, then we have become like the Khawarij, like the Ibadiyah, who have this built into their system because they are descendants from the Khawarij. Where the one who commits a sin, major sin, is in hell forever. There's no coming out. That's it. Finished. End of story. We've gone to extremes. When the Prophet ﷺ talked about people coming out of hellfire, etc., etc., so what was he talking about? So the point is that when we look at the great scholars of the past, we recognize what's right and good and praise them for it. And if they have errors, we identify those errors. We're aware of it. We don't have to make a big, banner and hold it up. Imam Ibn Hajar, he made a big mistake here, and this one made a mistake here. We don't have to do that. That's not necessary. We don't have to do that with people living even, so amongst us. So the point is that we take the good, and the errors, we recognize them and we avoid them. We inform those who are students who may be exposed to them and may not be able to circumvent the issues. So we clarify it for them, but we don't become haters of Imam Nawawi, burning his books. You had people doing that in Riyadh. At one point, people had gone to extremes. They were burning Imam Nawawi's books back in the 90s, and people just.
But a layman sheikh was unable to distinguish, yourself, me, your student, I can, but somebody, wouldn't you say just stay away if you're unable to distinguish the right from the wrong? Especially if you're sitting in front of an eloquent, well-spoken, convincing, Hadith al-Dajjal, that if you run away from him because he's going to convince you because of his hujjah, would you advise us to advise our students not to come near this? Run away because you're unable to distinguish this from that.
Well, where you have somebody who is clearly calling to concepts which go against the well-known established understanding of the deen, there's no longer a mahajjatin bayda. It's about who understands what they understand and who can explain the best and this kind of thing. Where you have a situation like that, then of course you have to advise people better not to take knowledge from this individual, to sit in his circle. It doesn't mean that everything that he teaches or has taught, etc., is wrong and misguided, but better to take advice. Okay, he wrote such and such a book. Is this a useful book or not? It's very good, it's useful, it's well done, so okay, take the benefit. But the point is that you don't open the door totally and say, okay, just go, you can sit with him, and whatever you find is kind of weird, just come back and ask me about it, I'll tell you, because maybe when he comes back with something weird, he can't find you, you're busy, gone, and then it's just settled in his head and he's carried on. So yeah, of course, it's better to avoid from live teachings. But where there are teachings which are set in books, it's just like the writings of, for example, as Zamakhshari, who identified many of these issues we're talking about. He identified them, though he became a great scholar amongst the Mu'tazilites, the rationalists who had gone astray, in that matter. Yet, his tafsir, Zamakhshari and Al-Razi, their tafsirs are still kept in our libraries, and we go and research and take things from them because they were experts in a number of different fields.
They died. Now we know where their harm is, where their benefit is. They died. They are done. But a living person that you never know what is going to come next, that's the scary part. I'm just afraid that something else is going to come, and that's why we take that position. That's my opinion. Allahu A'lam.
No, this is the wise choice. This is the wise advice that we need to give without turning it into a hatred. And that's what we have to be careful of with our students, that the younger generation, it's very easy to shift from dislike because of errors that they made into hatred. And, Allah tells us in the Quran that, the righteous amongst us makes the dua, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. We should not have hatred in our hearts for the believers. So because a believer has made an error and mistake or whatever, then it shouldn't turn into something of hatred, but more something of pity. Make dua for him, try to help if you can, etc. But then you have to avoid and advise others to avoid.